What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Out of Bounds podcast, a show dedicated to all things American football Ireland and indeed Irish American football. Jimmy English, delighted to be joined by Coach John Romanowski. The Irish American football season 2025 is just around the corner, and for players and fans alike, it is a very exciting time. Last year's season was fantastic. We have great expectations of the season ahead. Coach, always good to see you. It's been a while since we were on the sideline together talking football, so it's good to be back with you. How are you doing? How's things your side?
Absolutely, Pablo. Good. Thanks for having me. Thanks for starting this little journey. Hopefully, together, maybe we can turn this into some talk. But yeah, as I was saying to you before we came on air, that I was the chairman of a club last year, and I stopped that, and I thought to myself, "There's no way I'm going to have so much free time now. I'm going to be so much freer." But stuff just fills up that time every day. It just fills it up. So but I have a passion for football, and I think last year helped me get reignited again into the entire thing
Mm.
and what's going on, and I'd love to talk about it.
But that's the thing about football, and I find the exact same thing is you think when the NFL season finishes, you're like, oh, fantastic, I'm going to have so much free time, but no, the Irish American Football League rolls around, and myself and yourself are going to be kept very busy between going to games, reporting on games, and then doing this podcast, which we hope to at least record on a weekly basis. That is our promise to anyone listening. Is we're going to convene as much as possible to bring you our views and insights on the Irish American football scene. Um, Coach, I know we have a lot to get through, and you've been doing some fantastic research behind the scenes and getting into some of the team's coaches mindsets ahead of the season. Too big. I mean, I think last year we kind of found that the Irish Division One was almost just as big, if not bigger, than the Premier Division with some of the games going on there. But first and foremost, we have week one of the Premier Division coming up soon, March 1st, between UCD and the Rebels. A rematch of the Shamrock Bowl from 2024, where UCD dominated the Rebels down in Athlone. I think everyone will agree. Um, I think a question that the entire league and fans and players alike are asking themselves, Coach, is who, if anyone, will be UCD's biggest threat this year, or are they sitting pretty at the top of the division with no real worries? What are your thoughts on who, if anyone, can kind of challenge them and push them a little bit ahead of that week one matchup?
Well, I think first off, like coming at you, this is just from a coach's perspective and the interesting maybe views that as opposed to a player's perspective playing in Ireland or even a fan's perspective playing in Ireland, just pure coach's perspective of playing in it. Like UCD is a really well-oiled machine, and um, it's going to take a lot to beat them. It's going as long as that machine is there and those processes are in place and that staff, is in place to see them working. They have uh, amazing facilities. They have great catchment area, if you will.
Yeah,
There's a lot of really positive things going on for UCD, and realistically, they I like the fact that they expect themselves now to dominate. Like I, I do. I like the confidence that they have to go into every week with, and that's gonna be hard to beat. And if you look at it from a pure outsider's perspective, the rebels, as publicly, privately, had to have gone through some really weird, tough times last year. There was a lot of, I think there was some internal strife, and there was a lot of sort of understandings that happened there, and things definitely, there were faces that I knew there that aren't there anymore, and uh, so they had all that problems maybe going on behind the scenes. They still made the Shamrock Bowl
mm.
finals. They still made it, and that's a testament to something. That again, I think they have a solid coaching staff in place. Um, if they had a really, the Rebels were always known as those veteran they had a couple of the young guys, those veteran guys, but I think that there's some of those younger or newer players that are now to the point where they're ready to kind of take over and dominate the game. And it'll be exciting to see if they can rebuild and make that happen. And week one matchup, while it's super exciting for me for to see those two teams play, they're kind of used to it,
Yeah.
and
It was the
and
same.
and
It was the same story last year as well. I remember being out in UCD
and
in early
yeah,
March last year, freezing my ass off out there in Thornfield watching, and such a. It was really so. It was almost. It was like a chess match. Chess match. It really was. I mean, those two teams know each other so well at this stage. They know how to beat each other, but they also they almost balance kind of negate each other out a little bit because they're so similar with regards to their but they were so similar in regards to their attacking style and their aggressive defense and some of the standout athletes they have. I think personally it could come down to just how many more athletes each side has this year. And I think in that regard, UCD has the advantage because you have the names like Aaron Mooney, of course. You have Tom Donovan, Aaron's brother, whose name evades me at this point. But there's so many skilled players on that UCD side, and they're all big, they're all strong, they're all fast. It's going to be nearly impossible, I think, for
well,
UCD to be
and
beaten by anyone except the Rebels this year.
and I can tell you, working with the U19s, the Junior Wolfhounds, that um, they send quality. There's quality that come and play for us, and some of them are showing real leadership qualities, and they might not be the veteran
Hmm.
of today playing, but like I said, like the blueprint is there.
Yeah,
The blueprint is there, and I think other teams uh, would be very jealous and want to, like, damn, if we only had a little piece of that, like, and that's, like I said, that's a testament to them. But who knows? Who knows what's in the early seasons, and sometimes when you string a couple losses together, if that happens, you know, um, or even a loss, that could send a team reeling. But I think there's other teams too that have a legitimate shot this year of
yeah,
beating them. And I think next week, we should definitely run down the whole SBC conference and talk about it like we're prepared, like I'm prepared at least to talk about the Division One, the Heart Bowl conference myself tonight.
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, no, we'll definitely be take a closer look at that fixture next week as well as some of the. We are waiting. I am waiting to get my hands on a full breakdown of the schedule. So once I have that, it'll be a lot easier to get a lay of the land and see what the picture is. Coach, yeah, let's definitely shift our conversation a little bit to the Heart Bowl, formerly known as the Heart Bowl Conference Division One. Just as intriguing this year, really, as it was last year, with the different kind of movement going on there. The Cowboys, of course, gaining promotion to back into the Premier Division after their victory over the Rhinos in what was another great game last July down in Athlone. But the departure of the Cowboys coach, it leaves a little bit of a power vacuum almost in Division One because they were clearly, the kind of the top team with their strength last year. Um, and now you have several different teams out there still there who could be any one of them really could take the title. You have the likes of the Mavericks, you have the Eagles, um, who am I missing? I'm missing the Minotaurs who are going back down to the Division One after being in the top flight. So they bring that they bring that kind of experience with them. You have the Crusaders as well, who are always there or thereabouts, and the Rhinos. I mean, there's so many teams that could really grasp that league. And I know you've been talking, coach, to some of the teams and trying to get into an insight into their preparation, their mindset, how they're preparing their teams for the upcoming season. So, do you want to run us through, some of the themes that you found there, or is there anything kind of common threads running through what you've discovered or uncovered?
Yeah, so I basically sent out a questionnaire to all the coaches that could or able to respond to me before we take this, and I sent them all just a list of questions. I told them if they didn't want to answer, they didn't have to, and I told them what it was for. That this is what it was for, and I sent them. And in fairness, that most of them got back to me, and one or two didn't. But um, basically, just around what as a coach and as an organization you're trying to get accomplished, how things are going, maybe some particular, you know, things based on each team or each coach that I know. And I come at it from a coach's point of view, like I said numerous times already. But the themes are it's interesting because I think that what makes things interesting is storylines, right?
Mm.
It's all about the kind of no matter what it is, it's story. If the storyline, TikTok is just storyline after storyline. Um, and I think that when I look at this Heart Bowl conference and I look at these early matchups, and I learn more about them because I didn't really know a lot about them uh, leading up until last year, basically. It's fun. There's a lot of storylines. There's a lot
Mm.
of things that happen, a lot of movements. Two teams turn into one, and team. There's 50-mile-an-hour winds and flooded fields for these teams. And there's this amazing storyline that we'll talk about, later on. That's it's great for marketing. It's great for it's a great story to be told with the two of the new coaches that are on. But there's new head coaches, throughout the conference. There's at least 4 or 5, if not more, brand new head coaches to their teams this year or maybe second year, maybe it's the first, 2 years. So
In Division One.
yeah, and so it's interesting. There's a lot of it's fun. There's a lot of storylines as to what's going on, and a lot of the coaches' feedback for most of this division was, it was split a little bit in that, a lot of guys want to have fun. A lot of guys are stressing fun, which is awesome. They're stressing like teams that are in a rebuild or trying to recruit, teams that are trying to, they have to stress how fun it is because it's hard work to be good at. And if you come and you're having fun, then at least you be a little bit more willing to put in the hard work and be good at it. And uh, so there's a lot of sort of fun surrounding some of the culture that they're trying to build. Like, hey, come and some
Well,
are.
that was always preached to us, as a player 10 years ago. I mean, it's meant to be fun. I mean, this is a if you're not enjoying it, if you're not enjoying the sport or the game, then you should hang it up really because it's okay. Yeah, you take it seriously and you do your best and you put your effort in, but you don't strap on a pads and helmet and get belted around the place for it not to be fun. You have to enjoy it on a certain level.
Yeah, I think part of the reason that, especially with our sport, why it is fun to people though, is because of the. It's not always fun as in this is great, this is fun. Sometimes it's in like my that son of a bitch teammate of mine. Sometimes it's like all of us go through it. Like that's
Yeah.
what I mean. Like good, bad, and ugly fun. It's not. But yeah, so you're right though. But it's at what stage do you kind of change that over to wanting to getting ready to win, moving to the next level?
Yeah.
And there are definitely some teams that are, you know, on the verge there, but I think that there are quite a few teams that are. This is still a couple year project for them, and that's there's a lot of they're not in win now modes necessarily. In fact, none of them are in a win now mode. None of them are in. We put in this effort. We want to win now, and if we don't, we're disappointed that we're not winning
Mm.
now. Uh, and that's cool because they all kind of are doing just as much of what they can to reach for the golden ring by having um, by having decent expectations, because you're trying to recruit people, because the biggest problem is recruitment of players.
Yeah, still always
Recruitment of
has been.
players, it's a huge problem. So you have to put on a good show. And there are teams that don't necessarily have to recruit as heavy and as hard, and that takes a lot of stress off of them to think about winning, more. But when you're in that mode, and I think they are, it becomes just a different, an interesting prospect as to what's going to happen. If we go through a season, at least from what I'm kind of seeing, and I think some of them don't mean it necessarily what they say to me, but you know, the expectations, I think, of the head coach should always kind of try to be to win every game. And I know you have expectations of what your, uh, but hopefully they're still, even though they're rebuilding, they want to win. So they're getting better fundamentally. They're getting better technically. They're showing more discipline there. And I think all these coaches are in the right headspace to do it. Uh, so it's interesting that their responses were kind of similar in a lot of ways, uh, to each other. As far as building culture. But I think that some teams are probably a little bit further along confidence wise, from what I read, than other teams. I'd say that there's some growing confidence for a couple of teams, that are good. It's going to be interesting to see how they hold up. I think some teams have some real ballers, and they expect to win. I think they're going to make a run for it. Last year, the Cowboys had ballers. You
Yeah,
know, the Cowboys,
Aaron O'Kane and that connection between him and the quarterback Loughran was just insane. I mean, so the games that I saw, they were just unloading bombs, complete absolute bombs, and even in the bowl, it was really special to watch. So I think obviously they're not at all in the conversation anymore for the for the Division One, having won that last year. But I genuinely do think they are going to cause problems in the Premier Division this year, and I think a lot of teams are going to underestimate them. I just think the biggest issue for them is going to be self-inflicted wounds. But if they can avoid those, they should really. There's one game that I'm particularly looking forward to next year in the Premier Division, and that's the Cowboys at the Trojans in Daremore Park in Belfast. That's going to be a great game.
yeah, that'll definitely be a cracker. So then you have, they're gone. So who's going to fill that gap? There's hungry teams out there. Who's going to fill that gap? And I guess two two the Rhinos would be that sort of
Yeah,
the next in line
yeah,
to fill that gap, if their recruitment went well, if all things being equal now for all teams going across, um, and recruitment goes well, and they have the numbers, um, they have to be considered the next sort of favorite. I don't really know. What would you think?
Well, considering they did contest the inaugural Heart Bowl last year, and they did, um, I mean they did put on a decent enough performance. I think the Rhinos' issue has always been offense, and just I think it comes down to quarterback play, and I know, and this is not being sly at anyone in that position, but I think that is their biggest weakness at the minute is completing passes, and they run the ball very well. Their defense is good. Their special teams is good. I remember watching them play against the Eagles last year in Castleknock, and they had a couple of interceptions that were returned for big chunks. They did overcome the Eagles, but I think it's just the consistency in offense with regards to the passing game is going to be a challenge for them. One spectacular play that I was kicking myself. I think I recorded almost every play except for the one where they blocked the punt and returned it for a touchdown at the goal line. I'm still not over that, to be honest with you, that I missed that play. But you'd have to think that they will at least make it back to the playoffs, if not to the bowl game again. I mean, interestingly enough, last year, just for the stat nerds out there, last year's Heart Bowl was a rematch of the IFAL One Bowl from 2018, where the Rhinos bet the Cowboys down in Gorey, which is their first and only title to date. So they definitely have the pedigree and the potential, coaching as well. Dahi Hosford is an absolute gent and a great coach himself. So I think definitely a lot of potential. It'll also be very interesting, I think, to see how you alluded to some of the coaching changes there, and the two that kind of jump out at me is Ross McCooey of the formerly of the Rebels joining the Eagles staff as head coach down in Wexford. So a changing of the guard there from Kevin Platt. So that might, it's no harm kind of having a culture change at some point or having a coaching change, a regime change, and seeing, because the Eagles for me were always thereabouts with regards to potential and having the pieces, as a lot of teams were. And I think this coaching change will maybe hopefully spark a little bit in them and see, maybe bring them to the next level where they are kind of in the mix in the playoffs and challenging for titles.
So Ross Ross McCooey and Steve Walsh and Ty
Yeah,
Henry together went 19-1 in 2 seasons as the head coach OC DC trio. Now they have uh, gone on to
their separate
positions.
ways.
Well, whatever, they've moved on to positions in Division One, and that, think about how much better that's going to make
Yeah,
football. Think how good that's going to be for the sport of football in Ireland, and that that the riches have spoiled out to these teams for their reasons. I think it was location for the most part. Overall, I think
In Ty's
so.
case,
I'm
it definitely was.
excited.
I don't know the
I'm
case. Yeah, Ty.
excited if that's yeah. I'm excited for that to be the case. And I'm excited to see. Um, I think the Mavericks did have sort of transitional coaches all the
Mhm.
sort of time. I don't. I know we played against them before I left as head coach of the Panthers. We had definitely played against them a couple times. I, I think they may have gone through a few head coaches over their time, and now they have, and now Ty's come over, and that's only that's great,
Yeah,
that's only good for that team. And Ross being in Wexford, um, like gold mine that Kevin Klatt and Ross McCooey got together in Wexford Gold Mine, as a older coach, even myself, even though Coach Klatt has a couple of years on me, but like
just
he's
a
got a lot
couple.
more. He's got a lot more life than me too, like he's. I have a lot of respect for him and on what he kind of, him with Ross there last year, and now like here you go, passing that kind of Wexford Eagle torch, because I know that Wexford sort of had that year or so when things went kind of really south, and now when Coach Clark came back, look at where
Yeah,
they're
well, they
taking
won.
them.
They won a Division Two title against the
And
against.
look at yeah, how awesome is that? And
Yeah,
so Kevin Klatt has built a legacy
yeah,
with the
100%.
Eagles, and he and now with Ross coming in to take the torch, who better? You know what I mean? That's an amazing. That's fantastic news for everybody involved. And Ross went through. He's developed. He's not the healthiest that he wants to be, or he deserves to be going through this process. And I don't think he's. I'm okay to kind of to say that. And but he's like the way he's dealing with it is amazing, and the fact that he's dealing with it, and he has the time to head coach that team is awesome. And that's going to be a matchup, huh? It's going to be that's locker room material. That's fun. That's fun.
30th of March in Dundalk, Eagles traveling up to take on the Mavericks. As the Mavericks are my local team as a Loudman, I'm going to do my absolute best to be at that game covering that one. But I mean, just the whole you talked about storylines earlier, coach, and how everything has a storyline this year. That storyline of Ty Henry with the Mavericks and Ross McCooey with the Eagles as two former teammates, former Rebels coaches, legends of the game in Ireland. I mean, Ty Henry, let's not beat about the bush, is like what that man has done for Irish American football can never be measured in quantifiably. It's just such an intangible, important effect that he has that he has brought to the game here. But that's going to be some matchup down in up in Dundalk in a few
Yeah,
weeks.
I think the combined, what combined what those coaches bring to the table as far as pedigree is. the pedigree is through the roof, and
Yeah.
I think I think they both, well, both of them are very self-aware of the tasks that they've undertaken. They're
Mhm.
very, they're, which they should be. As a coach, you need to be self-aware. You can't fool yourself when you're a coach. You can't fool yourself into thinking something's better than it is or something's worse than it is. You have to try to you be really self-aware. You don't have to express that, but you have to try to,
Yeah.
for me, it was important. Um, but I think the two guys that don't care about that storyline, but because of the storyline are looking forward to it the most are Ross and
Yeah.
Ty,
Yeah.
and Steve. Like I think that those guys are looking forward to it the most, and it's going to be it'll be fun to see what the litmus test is for this season for Hart Bowl. It'll be fun when you see what these two guys are doing with brand new
What's
squads.
your really early prediction here? I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit. Don't kill me. But predictions for Heart Bowl 2025. What teams do you
Oh
see
Jesus,
getting
that's
there, and who do you see emerging victorious?
I
Bear
mean
in
that's
mind that, as I mentioned, the Minotaurs are back. So
yeah.
there's five teams there really. It could be any two of the five on paper at least now. Anyway.
Well, I think uh, not to be anybody's storyline or billboard material, but I, I I would say that
You know how this league goes. You know what we say on this podcast. We're going to be maybe not as
yeah,
crucified as
it's
we
cool.
were.
It's nothing. I think. I mean, I just again, I think that yeah. I don't know. I think that both of those teams, because the Eagles, while jumping up from that sort of Division Two and then
Yeah,
jumping up last year, that was a hard leap for them. It was a hard jump for them. But I think now that they've played it for a season and um, they are transitioned, if they have the bodies available, if they have the athletes available, they have a solid shot of contesting for it. Um, I think that the Mavericks has some veterans and they have
yeah,
some younger guys. They have there's a good athletic group of guys there, group of players there, and to be spurred on. And I think we're all aware that some of these coaches are even playing. Um, while for me that would be way too hard to try to figure it all out and play. More men, that's amazing. But uh, you know, I think the Mavericks have a good chance of getting close to this thing. I think the Minotaurs, while the Minotaurs are admittedly in a reset from what happened and what's been going on, they're very familiar with the situation. The Minotaurs have been there and done that, and
yeah.
they've uh, they went up and down and up again or something, right? I mean, it was very like
I've I've lost track at this stage how many times
yes.
they've bounced up
So
and down.
they know. I think a lot of their woes may come from personnel issues,
Yeah,
and getting the talent there. But if they could they had a youth team this year. They had youth players. So if at least there's seven or eight, or maybe 10 under 18 players that will be there in the next year, 2 years. That's huge. Imagine if a club getting eight guys in the last 2 years that are quality because they played youth football. That's going to be big. So if they can keep it together, then the future looks bright because they do have you know while they're veterans, those veterans still young guys and are talented there. So they do have a good core. If they can block and they can tackle, they're gonna be challenging. I don't know if they're there yet. I don't know if they expect to be there yet. Possibly, um, uh, because they have to, they have to reset and they have to make things. I think they had to simplify some things. I think if a lot of these teams simplified things based on their last year's performance, but they still have the talent to win. They proved it. They took the Panthers to They went back and forth with the
Yeah,
Panthers in that second game, back and forth,
they almost bet the Knights as well. I think who are
and
better
and
in
the,
this
the
league.
and the Panthers made the playoffs. You know what I mean? So that's how close. Whether there might have been UCD this far, playoffs
Hmm.
they, they were this far, winning games. They were kind of this far. It could have gone either way, and it happened to go against them. So they should be expecting sort of the challenge for that cup. They know what it's like to play against SBC teams last year. Okay, they got banged around, but like they played UCD and they played the Rebels and they played the Panthers and they played Cork and they played the Belfast and both Belfast. Like they played those teams, and those teams are the SBC teams are no joke. Like
Yeah,
there might be a lack or a you know talent somewhere compared to somewhere else, and that's what's happening. But those teams, though, there's some good football being played right now at that SBC level, and the Minotaurs played them all season for the last 2 seasons, and so they know.
it'll definitely. You did a good job of evading pinning your colors to the
I
mast
know I'm
there.
not done yet. I'm not done yet. So I got more teams too. The Giants.
Okay, go on.
Um, yeah, the
That's
Giants won the
I'm
Shield.
not really familiar with. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
of course, the
yeah.
Shield. Yeah.
I think that I think Coach Jow is happy that nobody's. I think until get a certain point, I think he's almost happy that they're flying under the radar. I mean, from what I understand, like their home grounds are kind of in a very remote location comparatively, um, but they're solid. They have solid grounds um, to play on. They have, I think they have a really solid, like with Coach Jow, who has experience in the UK coaching teams, um, and now bringing in Coach Skinner to be the DC of that team. I don't know if you remember him when he was with the
I
Panthers.
do. I do.
Yeah, so you know what's coming. You know what they're going through. You know what I mean? Like you know. Um, and they're doing a camp this weekend, and UCD coaches I think are going up there to run the camp with those players, and Scotha from a standpoint of players getting better at football, like that's a no brainer for whoever
Yeah.
shows up to that thing. That's a no brainer.
Great
It just
idea. It's great to see as well spreading the knowledge and the UCD with all their success helping out, and that's what it's all about. Really
look
is.
at that. Yeah, it should be done. I think it is. I think it is being done from what I see, at least from my perspective, because I always try to, I have nothing but respect for coaches in this country and the job that they're trying to do. I've said it before, it's a niche sport and it's a niche job within that niche sport. So the fraternity is quite small.
Yeah.
And so I know we're not all going to get along, and I know we don't all have to like each other. That's fine. But there has to be, I think, a respect for one another as coaches. There has to be kind of a respect for one another as coaches to know that it's hard. It's not easy. Like, it isn't easy. Administrating, being a psychologist, putting together playbooks, putting together plans, putting like the job is not easy. The more help you get, the better. But there's not a lot of coaches here in Ireland. There just isn't, just by nature right now. There's not. So we got to figure that out too. So anything that is going on, cross culturally, I admire and I appreciate, and it's a great thing to see. But he's won the Shield last year. Now he's putting camps together and running preseasons, and we know there's a lot of experience up there. And I think they're a team. They brought on a conditioning guy, nutritionist. They are they're making all the right moves to be very competitive. Now I think they might still be thinking timeline, but I think in this league they could be very quickly. They're going to challenge.
Well, considering, I think the last experience that I have of seeing the Giants play in real life is that that Division 2 championship game that I referenced previously against the Eagles, and they did push the Eagles the whole way. Really, I mean, it came down to the last couple of plays there. So, and that was was a couple of years ago now. So I can only imagine. You can see the progress that they're making. So and it's no harm having that extra little bit of competition for the perceived kind of top teams in that division as well. Someone on snapping at their heels. And the old phrase iron sharpens iron. I mean, it brings everyone on when teams are consistently upping their game and pushing and pushing.
Yeah, and there's focus and passion there. I did the chains for the Shield game. I did the chains, and so we were on their sideline, and there's a lot of passion there. You know, I, I'll use the word passion. There's a lot of passion. That sideline was
Rowdy.
very passionate. It was fun. It was a fun sideline. I definitely there was again we talked about the word fun. There was camaraderie there, and there was enjoyment and excitement, and it was fun. And it was a good game, and they played well. But there's a lot of passion there too. You know I sometimes you just pity officials, whether they're right, wrong, or different. They're going to hear it from some coaches, and it was exciting to watch, and he likes that, and he's using his experience. So they are a team to look out for,
Yeah,
whether it's this year or not. They seem to be doing all the right things from the research that I've been doing, a little bit from my outside optics with who I know. But yeah, that's another team that um, that I think could challenge for this thing. So like there's four teams right there, half of the division that could make
easily.
that easily make that final. Um, who would make that final? Man, let's say
Big question.
it's a good question because again, all right, let's just keep going over there. The Crusaders, like the Crusaders were in that Shield final. And I didn't speak to coach, unfortunately, but just again, outside optics, the Crusaders seem to be a few athletes away, and this is just my outside opinion of what I saw just from one game. Maybe they need to all understand what's at stake during these games, and there's some discipline breakdowns that
Mm.
happened that I saw in the game a little bit. Now that happened a little bit on both sides, but I saw some real sort of discipline breakdowns, and that's on the player. Like the players got like you can't let's play football, and if they can just play football and stop. I think I don't know. I always
Well, they're another team that even last year, similar to the Eagles, they're always there or thereabouts. Like you said, they have the pieces, they have the skill set. I know Richard Maloney, down there in the Crusaders, he's a great coach. He knows his stuff. I say he has the respect of his players, and now it's just about taking that next step or fixing the small things. And if you're saying that the small things are discipline, and you're right, that's it's on the players themselves to hold themselves accountable, but I think it's also on the coaches to put the foot down a little bit and say, okay, you might be my star player, but if you're going to act out, then I'd rather be without you. And it might be the case that with some individuals that works with certain other individuals who've been around the league for a long time, and come from certain vintage or background, that might necessarily be the case. If anyone out there listening catches my drift, but again, definitely one of those teams that should again challenge to at least get back to the playoffs.
and that's on top of the Eagles and Mavericks. That's on top of two coaches and two teams that we just talked about that, we're going to challenge. So, I mean, realistically, that's what makes the season kind of so fun in that regard,
Yeah,
right? Like
it's.
there
I mean,
are five.
it's more interesting, I think, even than the. And I don't want to say that the Premier Division is a foregone conclusion yet, because of course it's not. I mean, it's any given Sunday, but there's a lot more at stake. I feel like in the Division One, with regards to all the teams in the mix who could potentially pull it out and come out on top.
Well, yeah, that's why they're in Division One, right? Because there is a step there that has
Yeah,
to be taken. That's why these teams are in Division One, and they're in it for different, varying reasons. Um, but you're right, as that is the bottom division. There are some teams you just have to. That's what makes the season so fun. Is that
yeah,
like you said, it's the amount of athletes that show up, right? The amount of athletes that come, you know, um, and then you have after that you have the Stags and the Vipers, right? So now you have these awesome wild card teams
Mm.
that, the Stags were two teams, right, last year, and
Yeah, the Jets and the Razorbacks, I believe.
so the Jets and the Razorbacks uh, got together. So what you're saying is they made a decision that for the, betterment of to make the best of this, let's put this together and make it work. And if they did that right, if the merger went down correctly and everybody who was involved was happy about, what was going to happen, and I think it was easy to do because both teams were in the Division 1 kind of thing. Um, so to have a merger take place peacefully and for the right reasons could be like super powerful. If each team had they had numbers problems, okay, but if each team had like 10 solid, decent football players. Now that's 20. And now when you have those, the other bigger catchment area, bigger area to bring in, if you bring those in, you could really compete. And I know that they're trying to, get it together and figure it out, but like if they show up to play, they can be spoilers if they got their early season process right. They might need a
Well,
few games to play together, but
it definitely solves the issue of teams not having numbers and folding and then costing other teams games, because that's the last thing you want to see is there's a limited number of games per season, right? 8 games in the regular season, so maybe potentially a maximum of 8 games, which is not a lot of football for the amount of preparation that you put in. So it's always tough when you're a team going up against a team who then folds or can't make numbers, and then I mean, it has a detriment on the league as a whole when that happens. So, like you say, I mean, if they can get it together and potentially challenge, I mean, it would be great to see, and I think there's definitely a lot of excitement there. We'll definitely come back, Coach, on the next episode and possibly look at that a little bit more and how the whole thing about teams coming together might work and have an impact on the rest of the league. But I do want to talk a little bit as well before we finish up about the league in
let,
general.
yeah, can I just quickly talk about the Vipers because I didn't. That's the last team that I want that's in the
Absolutely,
division, and
absolutely.
I would be doing all of them a disservice if I didn't at least like the guy didn't talk about us. But the the Vipers too are the one thing I can tell you about the Vipers for sure is that their youth program is solid. Like they have a solid youth program, and maybe not this year, going into next year, but in a couple of years, that team is going to be gunning for bear, which means there's no reason why they can't pull out some surprise victories against some surprise teams, this year. And because there's only 8 games, losses are powerful. Losses are powerful when you have that many decent teams. So, losing to the surprise team like the Stags and Vipers, I think will be in the division. But I could be totally wrong here in off base, but I think that's going to be fun to see those guys compete too.
Well, it's definitely important to have that solid base, as you say, with the youth. I mean, the youth programs are so important for as feeder systems to have talent coming through the whole time, but not being completely raw, having game experience, having American football experience, and being able to then mature into the senior system. Because I do know that the Vipers were one of those teams that did have issues last year with fielding teams. And I actually traveled down to a Mavericks game where they were supposed to play the Vipers, and unfortunately that picture didn't go ahead, I think, in the end. So it's always disappointing for both sides. So look, if that can be avoided in the future, then I'm absolutely all for it.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's all about, for them, for their particular situation right now, what they're doing is just they went after the youth and they have captured some really solid youth. Uh, you know, um, there's big some big kids out there. There's some big kids on that squad. They're going through a rebrand too, a little bit there themselves. So they could be a surprise victor over some of these teams. And they're gonna always give you a hard time. They're gonna always give you a hard time. So it's gonna be exciting the whole season to see what happens. Early season. We'll talk about it in a couple of weeks, but I'm really looking forward to following what goes on in the Hard Bowl Conference this year.
So, Coach, before we finish up, and thank you again for your time, and thank you for everyone who is listening. Make sure you get us on social media at Out of Bounds AFI at Gaelic Gridiron. Share your thoughts, what you thought of our first episode. Make sure you do like and subscribe if you are listening or watching, and thank you again for your support, Coach. League structure quickly before we finish up, and this is something that I do want to come back to in future episodes because I think I know for a fact that the sport of American football in Ireland is at a critical juncture now at this stage with regards to how we progress into the future and how the sport continues to develop and grow. And there are definitely people now in the right positions to take it forward to the next level. And of course, we have all the outside factors going on. We have the NFL game here in September, which I think will have a massive effect on interest and awareness of the sport. But at the helm, at the board level, there are people now who are ready and willing to take the sport to the next level. Um, First and foremost, our new league president, Alan Namasny, former coach of the Cork Admirals, had success there as a player and a coach. And just knowing Alan as a person, that man is gunning to get this league to the next level. So how do you see that his whole role kind of moving forward and the growth of the league?
Uh, just to be honest, like, and I've been here, so I've lived in the country, whatever, 13 years, and you know, Jesus, you want to talk about storylines? The league board has always been biggest storylines. My goodness, we call them regimes around here. These people were in charge of their regime. These people, their regime. These people, that's what they kind of called it until sort of. There was a good kind of structure I think put in place a few years back, and then the problem is volunteer organization. Things tend to do that and work in cycles. Uh, I couldn't agree with you more that it's a critical junction. I think that it always seems like there's a precipice of critical junction, or like what is going on here. Uh, yeah, and we have the college games are here, and the pro game is like now coming, which is like you know ridiculous feat for Ireland to get. But Ireland got that feat because it's Ireland. Ireland got this game because it's Ireland, and uh, we need to figure out how the hell we can't get more involvement in not involvement expectations of what let them know, look, this is what we need. This is what we need. You know what I mean? Help us out here. Look, we're going to help you. We'll do whatever you want as an organization. Let's figure out what it takes to get some funding. I think sponsorship deals and funding and all of those things are going to be hugely important for the league in order to kind of keep up, get any growth, at all, and to continually rely on your you know the fees that are paid in a sport that's getting this big with all of these opportunities. Um, I think that somehow we need to make the move to do it. And I think these are the right guys to do it. I think.
Well, we've already seen the Pittsburgh Steelers investing heavily in the sport here, not only financially with a nice generous donation, but also in the work they're doing to grow flag football. And look, it's a whole conversation about flag football that we're not going to get into now because we could be here for another hour. Um, but even like it's like you say, there's such a massive opportunity now for the league to market the shit out of itself to everyone coming over and everyone who's hearing about this game and thinking to themselves, "Oh, American football is coming to Ireland. How do I take it up?" To get people to get in front of people's faces and get them into pads or into youth camps, uh, just involved in the sport some way, and then capitalize financially as well, be a grand sponsorship, however much money they can get in that then goes towards growing the sport here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it needs. I mean, not saying it's at critical mass, but when I talk to a lot of,
Not far off it though. I mean, if it's
I've
not now,
I've
right?
as last year as the chairman of the club, I talked to numerous chairmen of other clubs and head coaches of other clubs that I've known, and had very honest and frank conversations with a lot of them. Now, some of them are doing a lot better than others. I know, but there's, every club is sort of, there's so many times when clubs are teetering, like, are we going to make it? Like, we
Yeah.
need to bring in enough money from our players. We have a lack of players. We need to figure that out because we need to pay for, the ambulance. And Ireland, nobody has their own, like, pitch. Like, we play on rugby pitches or on, God forbid, kind of Gaelic pitches, but like, we play on other, we're renting, and some teams have it better than others, which is a huge relief. It's a huge relief. But not having, there are teams that don't have that. You know what I mean? Like, the and I'm proud to say this, but the South Dublin Panthers train on a South Dublin park, and I'm proud to say that that happens because I think South Dublin needs to get more involved in American football because when
Mm.
American football teams, when college teams come here and these pro teams come here, don't tell me for one second that South Dublin isn't going to try to take full advantage of the fact that all of this influx is coming in and the
Mm.
marketing potential that it has, and we are the football teams that are in your constituencies. And I know, hopefully there's an understanding of that in businesses and sponsors. But we have to look as a club. You have to look to the example. Who's setting the example for how we run our club properly? Well, we look to the league, and as we know, it hasn't been the easiest of jobs for boards to make sure that they're doing it properly, whether they're right or wrong, whether the governance is done extremely properly. And I think that's what's happening now. I think that there's, um, from what I understand, you know, there's a real kind of return to governance and a return to process and a return to if because the board lost some key members too. A couple of key members, and they did work. The board members that worked. So there's less of them doing a lot of work, and I think they're doing good work, and I think they're trying hard, and I think that hopefully we can take advantage of these pro teams coming in and the college game, and hopefully we can take advantage of some kind of something out of that, and we can progress the game because yeah, it's at a kind of a critical mass as far as it's an expensive sport to play.
But from what I've seen and the brief interactions that I've had with some of the board members, you know, Paulie from the Rebels as well, and Paul O'Donnell from up north, just to mention a few from the Vipers. I mean, their passion and dedication really does shine through, and I think if anyone can get it done and get stuff done and bring this league up a level or several levels perhaps, and I mean it's been at a very very similar level for years and years now, and just to hammer home my point is that now is the time, if not now, then when, for all these pieces to come together. We have a fucking NFL game in Dublin. If the league can't get its shit together this year and make something of itself and actually get out, get in front of people, and just stop. Okay, maybe it might never stop being a niche sport, but it can definitely become less niche and more accessible. And every day during the NFL season, or there was reports on the radio, mainstream RTE were running reports about NFL scores. If that doesn't show you how big the game here has become, and how much potential there is now for this league to take the next step and grow, then I don't know what will.
Yeah, I agree, totally agree with you, and I think that, but to compound that, you know, urgency of what kind of taking advantage of the situation, to compound with that, they also have to deal with, um, I think, a lot of past miscommunications,
Mm.
perhaps from, at board level, from board to membership. I know that there was. This is no knock on the commissioner, but because I think that she probably has her reasons. But I had an issue with my club, and it was actually handled quite quickly because I think that the way we handled the issue was proper, and it was an easy sort of decision for the commissioner to make, and she got back quite quickly. But I know that there were clubs out there that had questions that needed, guidance and leadership, and there was a real sometimes there I think the communication chain was broken, and
Mm.
um again, this isn't a knock, it's just a fact. It
Mm-hmm.
happened, like I know it happened, and and that kind of stuff whatever it takes to make that change, or and maybe this new this new kind of board structure and their return to governance is going to make everybody more accountable to each other, and everybody in the league and every member has to take a little bit more accountability, I think, to get the job done. And but I think it's on the right path. Yeah, man, I think it's on the
Yeah.
right path. I think that they're bringing in reviewers to look at overlook at see what things are happening. It's all good stuff. Like the more eyes we get on us, the better. And whatever brings those eyes. And there's a lot of good people here that can get the job done.
Well, one thing we certainly cannot doubt their dedication or their passion for the game, and I'm sure looking forward to seeing how the league develops in the coming months. Coach, we are right up against the hour mark. Look, absolutely fantastic discussions there. Lots talked about, lots delved into, still lots to look forward to. We're just about a week and a half now away from the first game of the season, and we'll definitely be back very soon to look ahead to that game, look ahead to do our deep dive of the SBC as well. Not completely writing off any other teams there before we start getting inundated on Instagram with messages.
No
Keep your
way.
panties on. We're all about balance here. We just call it like it is. Coach, always a pleasure to talk football with you. I will see you very soon, and
Yeah,
thanks for
you
your time.
too. Super, really quick though, before we go, April 20, the last Saturday in April 27th, I can't remember the date. There is a super good chance that the Wolfhound under 19 Wolfhounds will be playing a game at the NSC. Opponent TBD. Hopefully, we can get that stuff out to everybody. But
Absolutely.
if there is anybody listening to this podcast, whether you liked it or you didn't like it and you made it to this point and you love football, then come and watch the future of the sport play for you. Because again, you want to talk about fun. It's a lot of fun, and it's exciting to see them all coming together, and it's a great opportunity to come watch them. So I'll let you know, but come out and watch it. Otherwise, Jimmy, thanks, man. I appreciate you for having me, man.
As soon as we have details of that game, we will post it across all our channels. So do keep an eye on our social media at Gaelic Gridiron, at the Out of Bounds AFI podcast. And Coach, I'll see you very soon.
Sounds good, pal. Thank you.